Butler, unstoppable, on fire. That last night, what a show. Jimmy Butler making threes, pull-up jumpers, driving to the rack. This was a fourth quarter display. What an assassin. Nobody was stopping Jimmy Butler. It was his time to shine. And that last night in the fourth quarter was Jimmy Buckets. That's why the Miami Heat invested in Jimmy Butler. That's why I told you, even before this matchup was said, even before the restart in the bubble, that the Miami Heat would beat the Milwaukee Bucks. And listen, this was another brutal night at the office for Milwaukee, and specifically Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I don't think at the end of the day, if you've been paying attention, you could be surprised. How about Giannis? He was sloppy, only 18 points. You realize Giannis had 6 field goals in the game. Jimmy Butler made 6 field goals in the fourth quarter. And look, right now for Giannis Antetokounmpo, it's a terrible matchup. It's in his head, and it's also reality. Bam has been unbelievable. Bam Adebayo on defense. And you look at Eric Spoelstra, he has made sure that they've denied Giannis Antetokounmpo the basketball. And I think the Miami Heat are frankly the better basketball team. I'll say it again. The Miami Heat are the better basketball team. I trust this team more in terms of the total team. Jimmy Butler sets the tone, sets the tempo, and everybody else just feeds off of it. Butler is the star, but how about the role players? Bam stepping up. How about Tyler Herro? He had a gigantic three-pointer. That was huge. Dragic was unstoppable. Eric Spoelstra is a phenomenal coach, and you see the points for the Miami Heat last night. These guys were incredible, and you can't be surprised. I trust Eric Spoelstra more than I trust Mike Budenholzer. I think that Chris Middleton is not a real second star, and he was solid to start the game. He was absolutely invisible in that fourth quarter. Miami just has it. I expect them to win this series. And, talking to Charles Barkley on my SiriusXM radio show today, he said he was very disappointed that Giannis Antetokounmpo didn't demand to guard Jimmy Butler when he was putting on that display. Listen, Jimmy Butler's an alpha dog. Giannis Antetokounmpo is the MVP, but he hasn't proven that he is a primetime assassin, and that is a major difference in why Miami is going to win this series. How about Chris Paul? The ultimate revenge against his former team, the Houston Rockets. Never say die attitude, and wow. You can make the case this was the single most impressive basketball game Chris Paul has played in his Hall of Fame career. All things considered, former team, and they were down, OKC was, by 6 points. He hit 2 gigantic three-pointers at 98-92, and this was next level. And hey, for good measure, he'll slap Robert Covington on the derriere. This was a tremendous fourth quarter, all smiles, as he and Billy Donovan were able to celebrate. Chris Paul not going home, and consider everything he's doing as a head of the Players Association with everything that is so wonderful off the court in terms of Black Lives Matter, and it's important. And Chris Paul was not going home. And look, obviously he was livid when Houston traded him to OKC, and a lot of people thought, myself included, he'd never play a minute and they would buy him out. Instead, at the end of the day, stays with OKC. They become a really strong team. They become a legit force in the Western Conference, and they now have a Game 7 coming up because he outplayed Russell Westbrook, who he was traded for. And that was the story of game number 6. Paul was sensational when it mattered the most, and Russ, this was a hot mess. And I love Russell Westbrook. I always defend Russell Westbrook, but he was absolutely dreadful. Chris Paul hit a couple of huge free throws at the end of the ball game to give the Thunder a 102-100 lead, and then Russ just turned it over. And the fact that Russ was dribble drive to the hoop and kicked it out and didn't get the ball to James Harden, who set the pick, Honestly, that's a terrible job by Russ. It's a terrible job by Mike D'Antoni. And I love Russ, but at the end of the day, Mike D'Antoni, and this is on him, and remember the review with the Chris Paul play? Mike D'Antoni needs to make sure the message is sent. James Harden takes the final shot. It's that simple. James Harden needs to take the final shot. I couldn't believe it. But then again, I could believe it because it's Mike D'Antoni and it's the Rockets. And I love Russ, but even in OKC, he had moments of futility when it mattered the most. And Game 7 is everything in terms of D'Antoni, Daryl Morey for going small, James Harden, who could forget about Golden State or what transpired against San Antonio. Russ obviously has had some grotesque playoff games, including last night throwing it away. You look at the talent, it's not even close. Houston has it over OKC. But Billy Donovan has coached his derriere off all season. Major coaching advantage. Paul grossly outplayed Russ in the revenge game. If the Rockets lose Game 7, heads and reputations are going to roll.